Old movies for young stoners. Old movies for young stoners. With Bob Calhoun and his friends. Should I smoke this spliff and watch Montgomery Cliff? Or should I smoke a bong and watch King Kong?
This is Old Movies for Young Stoners, the podcast where cannabis is a gateway drug to cult and classic cinema. Please like us, rate us, review us on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon, or whatever podcast app you're listening to us on. Throw us some stars, and most of all, please subscribe. We have filmmaker Floyd Webb from Chicago back on the show with a double feature that me and him have been talking about for years now. Isn't that right, Floyd?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Probably 5 years. 5 years of talking about this double feature.
Yeah.
Now, Chris Nolan's The Odyssey is still raking it in via pricey IMAX screenings, so both of our movies today have quests in them. They're a little bit of Odyssey exploitation, but this is totally a coincidence. The one thing that binds both of these films together, however tenuously, is that they both take place in Africa, even though only one of them was filmed there, and it won't take you more than a half a guess to try to figure out which one. In our first film, a young couple dreams of escaping dusty Senegal for Paris in Djibril Diop Mambéty's hallucinatory masterpiece Touki Bouki from 1973. And then Richard Widmark is a Viking raider, and Sidney Poitier is resplendent as a Moorish king, and they both are after the legendary golden bell at the Pillars of Hercules. I knew I'd work in some Greek myth stuff in here, the Pillars of Hercules. They're after that golden bell in the long ships from 1964. If only the golden bell was in Paris, we could have the crossover that only Floyd and I are clamoring for when we come back on Old Movies for Young Stoners.
With Bob Calhoun, he is a loon. Old movies for young stoners. Am I gonna get higher and watch Billy Wilder? Yeah, 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 yeah. Old movies for young stoners. Yeah, yeah.
And we're back on Old Movies for Young Stoners, the podcast where we pair cannabis with cult and classic films to help you on your trip through cinema history. Corey is on tour, bringing the 1981 punk new wave concert documentary Erg, A Music War to a theater near you. You can catch him at the Roxy in San Francisco on Sunday, August 30th. Greg is on assignment, and Felina can't deal with all the animal snuff in Touki Bouki, no matter how artfully it's filmed. But we do have Greg and Felina's cousin, Darren Norris, from the Cultural Futures Exchange podcast here today. Thank you, Darren.
Let me tell you, it's a real honor to be here. I'm a huge fan of the show, and of course, my cousin's on it, and my multiple cousins are on it. So it's sort of a family thing too. But obviously, I've been friends with you, Bob, for years and years, and I follow the show, and it's a real honor. So thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. I've been, with Greg always out for this or that. I'm like, why don't we just have Darren on once in a while? And it worked out this time. So thank you. And joining us once again is independent filmmaker, legendary movie programmer, and the founder and curator of Blackness TV, a streaming service focused on Black cinema from around the world. Back in 1982, he founded Chicago's influential Blacklight Cinema Film Fest and programmed it through 1996. He is an associate producer of Julie Dash's Daughters of the Dust. He blogs on movies, politics, and just about everything on his Substack titled A Different Lens. And he's one of my best friends. Welcome back to the podcast, Floyd Webb.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah. As we said, we've been talking about doing this episode for, I don't know, probably 4 years now. You've done 2 episodes with us. And I want to say the thing about Floyd is he understands this podcast's mission better than I do sometimes, because every time when I've talked to Floyd, the first time I talked to Floyd, having him on for Top of the Heap, which was a film that you were instrumental in restoring, they call it a blaxploitation movie, but it's a very, very trippy movie about an African-American man in Washington, D.C. He's a cop and he wants to be an astronaut. And so it's got lots of space fantasy in it. And I'm like, hey, do you want to do this with Daughters of the Dust? And he's like, no, I want to do this. I want to pair this with Zsa Zsa Gabor and Queen of Outer Space, which is a much more old movies for young stoners take.
Oh, yeah.
And this time we're back to me getting all artsy with Floyd. We're talking about Touki Bouki and, should we do Daughters of the Dust now? And he's like, no, we should do The Long Ships with Sidney Poitier and Richard Widmark after that damned Golden Bell.
Yeah. Yeah. The time period, when Poitier is winning all these awards, he's won 20 awards. He's in everything, right? He hasn't become mainstream yet, right? Lilies of the Field hasn't won the Academy Award yet, right? And so this is sort of like the last thing, and it was sort of kind of like a step down a little bit, much more epic, but kind of weird.
Yeah,
from what he had been doing up until then, you know what I mean? He had done some really interesting movies, man. And this was good because it brought out that history, this Moorish history that nobody in America in 1964 had even, unless you were like in the Black Moorish Science Temple in Chicago, you didn't think anything about the Moors, you know what I mean? So that was, yeah.
We'll get to that a little later.
Yeah,
We'll get to that because we're gonna get to our first movie first. But you're enduring some storms out there in Chicago. What's going on in Chicago these days?
Hey, a lot of people are having droughts. We're being drowned. We're being drowned. It's cloudy. It's been dark. Since I came back from New York, where it was 90 degrees every day, it's been like 85 here every day, and raining and storms and flooding in the viaducts. It's just been really weird weather all summer here. I don't remember us having this much rain ever.
So it's like Hawaii, 85 and raining.
Yeah.
You're in the tropics now, man.
Yeah. My air conditioner works, so hallelujah.
Anything else going on with you besides the weather? What's going on in Floyd world right now? People want an update.
I'm releasing Legally Drugged at the end of the month. The feature film we shot in New York about Richie Sneberg, based on a real story, a real person, about Richie Sneberg, who set out to get rich so he could take care of his family, and on the way to making $10 million, he becomes an insomniac. He gets depressed, and the doctors put him on sleeping pills and all kinds of antidepressant pills, which make him psychotic, puts him in the nut house 10 times in 3 years, and he makes $10 million and loses his family. And that's a crazy real story that's coming out that we shot for very little money,
And your collaborator on that was at Cannes, right? Pardon me for...
Yeah. Vagabond Beaumont was the director, and he's been acting as as sort of a co-sales agent with another guy in London. And we've been we were trying to, but see, my idea has always been to like distribute it independently and cut out the middleman. And so we've got a way of doing that. It's gonna go live on blackness.tv at the end of the month, and we're going to release it on the Artini network, which is a distribution platform that's got about 1,000 theaters around the country. And we're going to go into the marketplace there. We're going to, we've got an essential marketing plan that hits institutions, hits colleges, film clubs, even individuals who want to show the film in their home, and the money comes directly to us when people license the film. So I like that,
Why cut it in Paramount? It's going to be too DEI for Paramounts, you know. So
Well,
and they're going to
yeah.
own half of everything soon. So you got to
Well,
go
no,
independent.
they'll own like 80% of everything because they get you, and all that other stuff. You know,
Yeah.
publicity, prints, advertising, blah 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 blah. You know, and other times, and then when you want to audit anything, guess who gets to pick the auditor? Not you.
David
So,
Ellison,
yeah,
that
yeah,
fine, upstanding individual.
yeah, yeah.
Floyd's
Mhm.
Floyd's streaming service, by the way, is Blackness TV, and it's BLACKNUSS. For all you people like me out there, it is not with an E, it's with a U. Blackness
Yeah.
TV. So check it out.
TV.
Blackness.tv. Yes.
Yeah, .tv. Right.
.tv. Yeah, check it
Yeah,
out. There's
yeah.
there are definitely some old movies for young stoners on blackness.tv. Yeah, it's always enjoy going through there and just seeing what's new in Blackness. So
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we have somebody who has a streaming service on the show today, so that's always
Yeah.
what Floyd brings to it.
Yeah.
You know, whoever's running HBO Max these days, they aren't on the show. Neither is the whoever is on Tubi. You know, I mean, we talk a lot about Tubi, but they wouldn't come on the show. So,
Yeah.
Darren, on your podcast on Cultural Futures Exchange, you did do a two-part episode, an examination of the Phantasm film series, and I do want to say Reggie Bannister, R.I.P. He played the undead alien fighting ice cream man in 5 Phantasm films. So any
That's
thoughts
right.
on
That's right.
any thoughts on Reggie before we get into our first film?
Yeah, I mean, Reggie is an amazing phenomenon. I think he's kind of what makes that series. Really, I mean, the series is, you know, it definitely varies in quality, but I think kind of the spirit of Reggie makes all the films worth seeing, and I think it's kind of what helped us do that. You know, I think he was an amazing character, and you know, the first film I think is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. The others all have their merits, and mostly I think it's due to him. You know, he's kind of one of these great everyman horror villain or horror heroes, kind of like Ash in the Evil Dead series. Yeah, R.I.P. definitely. Plus,
Yeah.
he's also a rock star. You know, there's music, his great music. So yeah, it was fun to do that for sure.
I mean, seeing that first movie when I was way too young to see it, it was a second feature it was a preview second feature with Star Crash. So I'm in my top little kid Star Wars mode, and then see this thing that kept me awake for like 3 days straight, basically Phantasm. But the scene where him and Jodie are jamming on the porch reminded me of like my sister's friends, because my sister's like 10 years older, so she's like dazed and confused generation, and it's just that's how these people were. And Reggie was the cool ice cream guy, and I bet you he sold pot out of that ice cream truck.
Yeah, no doubt.
The other thing about seeing that movie is there were some people heckling it. And in the scene where Reggie's opening the ice cream truck and Angus Scrimm is like smelling the cold, and there was a guy behind me that said, "That dude just loves sniffing popsicles." So that commentary stuck with me for all these years.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So check out the Cultural Futures Exchange 2-episode series on the Phantasm movies, and pour one out for Reggie Bannister.
Phantasm. Is it an illusion?
Real quick, we got to give a shout out to Charlie in Minneapolis. He is the only person who emailed us at oldmoviesforyoungstoners@gmail.com for the entire Count Dante and the Black Dragon Fighting Society discography. All 2 CDs. I sent them out to him. He's the only one who wanted them. I mean, and he answered me really fast, everybody. I mean, I was like, oh shit, what if 100 people want these? Because I just threw it out there. Hey, if you want these, I'll send them to you. And I'm like, what if 500 people want them? Or what if, you know, I mean, you could go broke in a hurry. It was like $7 to mail them out, $6. And if, 100 people want them, do the math. So he was the only one who wanted them. From here on out, like the first 3 people who want them, I will happily send them, but I'm not going to just send them ad infinitum, which nobody else wants them. But thank you, Charlie. I think he's also the guy who won our Dr. Phibes box set giveaway. So we're just giving Charlie all the discs. And I want to say John Hansen has messaged us on Instagram requesting that we pair Weed with Ninja 3 The Domination. He says it's a good candidate for old movies for young stoners. I mean, maybe me and Corey can do a mini episode on it soon. I mean, it would be our first foray into the canon of canon films. We've kind of stayed away from canon because we are classy, but you got to give the people what they want at the end of the day. And John has a metal band, at least if I'm reading his Insta right, called Doo Doo Demon, DUDUDEMON, and they're on Bandcamp, and they are fucking great. They're really good. So just want to talk about that. And this is Old Movies for Young Stoners, and we will be right back. In 2018, Beyoncé and Jay-Z chose the striking image of them riding a motorcycle with the giant skull of a zebu steer attached to the front of the bike, the extensive horns underlining the power couple as Jay-Z glowers at something unknown in the distance, and Bey looks her most sultry as she clutches her man's shoulders. The image was an homage to what was once an obscure avant-garde African film from 1973 by director Djibril Diop Mambéty about a trifling cowherd named Mory and his college student girlfriend Anta, who dream of leaving the dusty streets of Dakar in Senegal for their fantasies of Paris. As they plot their escape, dreams collide with stark reality, creating a film that Martin Scorsese called a cinematic poem, made with raw, wild energy. Restored by Scorsese's World Cinema Project in 2008, propelled into prominence by Beyoncé and Jay-Z 10 years later, and added to Sight and Sound's 100 Greatest Films of All Time in 2022, this is Touki Bouki, or Journey of the Hyena. Floyd, you have a history with Touki Bouki, so why don't you tell us about it?
Touki Bouki was made in 1973 in Senegal, in Dakar. But what's interesting is that Djibril started out in theater, right? He was like renegade. He would be in Dakar 1970 in the 1970s. He was considered like a hippie. He was unconventional. He didn't follow anybody's rules. He loved cinema. He was able to make this film with no film training. He had an idea. He was able to raise some money to make the film. He went out into the streets of Dakar with barely a plan, and did this incredible piece of work that became legendary. I mean, so legendary that like Scorsese chose it as one of the films to be restored by the World Cinema Foundation. And the film won an award at Cannes, but after the film was done, he could barely get arrested. His film flew in the face of what the French finances of films like this expected of African cinema. They wanted to dictate the terms in which and the conditions of which African film was shown. They wanted to control the content. His like back then, films in France were being financed by the Ministry of Cooperation. They were basically taking money that they were, they were back then Congo. I mean, this is connected to a whole geopolitical thing. Congo was being controlled by it was like essentially still a French-Belgian colony, right? And they were using the money from the mineral-rich state of Katanga, which Wakanda is based on, if anybody really wants to know. And they were using that money to finance these films. So Djibril comes along and he makes this film in the tradition, not a pastoral village film, the way that the things that like that Europeans wanted to see. You know, they wanted to get a look at the village life, and he makes this urban drama about about immigration, about leaving the neo colony of Dakar. He does something that even Africa's greatest filmmaker doesn't do, and I say greatest in quotation marks because who decides who's great? I say Djibril Diop Mambéty is one of the greatest filmmakers in Africa, or in the world actually. Anyway, he makes this film. It uses the techniques of the French New Wave, Nouvelle Vague, if you're into film history, and it's a controversy. You know, it becomes controversial. You know, who does he think he is doing this, trying to establish, this new film language that's a derivative of the French New Wave and creates a new African wave in cinema. He doesn't get to make any films after that for about, my God, almost 25 years. I met Djibril when I was looking for this film. Somebody actually went to a African cultural festival, met Djibril in Dakar in about 1970. I think it was 1977 in Nigeria. And they met him, and Djibril gave them a 16 millimeter copy of the film. And he brought it back. And we had one problem. We couldn't get it. We couldn't get subtitles. So it was hard to show the film because we couldn't get subtitles. We didn't know even how to get subtitles. I mean, I'm only 22 at that time, you know?
Well, you can't just put it through,
you just can't put it through a chat GPT.
Or just anything. You couldn't even, there's no computer.
It had to be translated, right. It had to be translated. You know, it was like probably like a $10,000 proposition. So we had to wait. So we had to wait for the Ministry of Cooperation. But the thing about it was, we watched the film in French because of the images, right? Now, my French was like really, really, really weak at that point. But a lot of us who watched it, we remember the images, right? The types of images that were in there, the statements that he was able to make about imperialism, right? About colonialism, right? All of these things that was going on. It was also a time of political upheaval in Senegal, and that's all illustrated. You know, the plot is this guy Mory. It starts out he's a poor herd boy. You know, he rides on his cow. He rides on this steer, and he herds all of these other cows. And one day, he takes them all to slaughter, and he's left without a job. The next time we see him, he's on a motorcycle with the horns of this steer. That might have been the one that he finally had to have slaughtered, and he's trying to figure out how to get by on a day-to-day basis. You know, he's on the margin. You know, he's on the margins of society. He doesn't have any money, and where he lives, you get to see Dakar in a way that we've probably never seen in American cinema. You know, and I think that's one of the most important things is getting a sense of the lifestyle of the people, which is very rich, very busy. You know, to see the marketplaces, it was so colorful. I mean, the thing is beautiful. The restored print, if you go to Criterion and you get the restored print, the first thing that hits you in the face is all of the colors, the myriad colors. I mean, and the audio, the sound of the city. You know, I mean, he really went to a long way to give you a taste of what that was really like. And he's got this girlfriend who is a student, and she's a radical student. And there's like two factions. There's a radical faction, and there's another another kind of right wing faction. You know, neo-colonialism is taking its toll. And people are trying to get out. People are trying to leave because they can't get jobs. People go to school, they get educated, and that's the plan. I mean, it's the same thing that's going on now. to the point that his niece Mati Diop made a film that was sort of a sequel to Touki Bouki, right? And the sequel to Touki Bouki becomes about the guys who are trying to leave, and they cross the desert, or they get on a boat. They get on some flimsy boat and they sail from the coast of Dakar all the way to Spain. And about the dangers. At least in Touki Bouki, they were they're plotting and scheming to raise the money to get a ship to buy a ticket on a ship to go to Paris.
You know what would have helped them, Floyd?
What was that?
The Golden Bell, if they could have
The
found
Golden Bell. The Golden Bell.
Hey, Darren, let's get Darren in here. Darren, had you seen Touki Bouki before, and your thoughts on Touki Bouki?
Okay, I'd never heard of this film in my life before, and I think while watching it, I was kind of, while watching both of these films, I was trying to figure out how they related. It was so, they were so different, right? But this film, and when I first started watching the film, I thought, is this old movies to confuse young stoners? Because it's very, as Floyd mentions, this is completely avant-garde. It's completely avant-garde. But as I watched it, I just became mesmerized by this film. It's an amazing film. I loved how the beginning of the film, really is about just immersing us in this world of Senegal. Obviously, yeah, it feels documentary, right? There's the kind of shacks where people live, and there's the marketplace, and the sound design, like you mentioned, Floyd. The sound is incredible in this movie. The use of music, the Josephine Baker Peri 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 theme.
Oh yeah.
Almost mockingly as the characters, but almost like overwhelming. They play this over and over, and then there's, even at the beginning, you hear birds, and the birds are almost the birds are distorted. Like the sounds are very prominent, and I felt like even you hear like the morning prayer or whatever, right? Because I believe most of the country is Muslim.
Yeah.
And you hear you hear that in the background. You hear all these different sounds, and even the early scenes where the women are gathering water, and there's almost this improvisational thing where there's just a fight. It's like super, and it's hilarious because the women are fighting and the man tries to stop them and they completely overwhelm him, and it's almost like a slice of life before you actually get into what's kind of a story.
Oh, that was at the well. That was at the water pump. That was at the water pump, right?
Right.
And it was about who goes first. And it's a real thing. I mean, if you've ever been in those situations where you have to wait for water, there's always somebody who feels like they don't have time and they're privileged and they're going to get ahead, and that's how it goes down. So yeah, go on. No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's great. I mean, I love your background on it because, again, I tried to look into this film a little bit after, just because I can't help myself. If you guys ever listen to our podcast, I just go off. I'm kind of the guy who digs into things and stuff, but it's good to have your perspective because you know so much about the background. Because as I watched this, I just kept had so many questions about like what is the political environment of Senegal at the time. So I looked up that a little bit. Right. And, the whole, obviously the French, the connection with France, and obviously there is a lot of symbolism around neocolonialism. And, it's just a fascinating film. As you watch it, you just get, a part of me was like, it felt like someone's telling me their dream. It's so, the way that things move in the movie, there's these very realistic scenes like the water fight, etc., coupled with these fantastical kind of magical scenes. Yeah. And I really felt like, it's just a fascinating film. I keep thinking of the images of this film that will just never leave me. I was blown away by this. And to be honest, I don't know how, Bob can talk about the marijuana aspect of this, but I'm thinking, you're already, on a trip with this film.
Yeah.
It's already mind altering in a way.
There is definitely this movie makes you feel stoned even if you're not.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it is also hard to make sense of, so I'll get to that in my weed recommendations later. What's interesting to me though, okay, Mory and Anta they're basically trying to steal money. There's almost a heist film aspect to this. And there's a point where they want to steal all this money that's being raised, or maybe raised, maybe not. It might all be bullshit at this wrestling match. There's this wrestling match outside, and there's this money that's reportedly going to Charles de Gaulle's funeral expenses or whatever it is to build another statue of him. Like Jesus Christ, just get over Charles de Gaulle, Senegal. Just get over it. Who cares? He's fucked you in 8 ways to Sunday, Charles de Gaulle. But they're gonna steal the ticket money from that. So there's this wrestling stuff in the beginning, but then later on, they maybe they're just dreaming they steal the car, but they steal this red, white, and blue, not the French tricolor, but it's definitely an American roadster. And
that's
Mory.
Don't wait. You're missing something real important.
But
here.
let me just wrap up my thought here, and we'll go back. But Mory is he's standing up in the car. It's a convertible. He's buck naked. And he's doing like what to my mind is a pro wrestling promo but he's talking about Allah, and he's also talking about the griot, and he's saying how badass he is. And it's like he's Freddie Blassie or something. And I'm like, do people in Senegal in 1973 have that kind of understanding of wrestling? Me watching it through American eyes, I'm seeing he's like Ric Flair or something. Doing the wrestling speech, boasting about himself, but mixing it with his culture and with the griot, with West African griot, and also Islam. It's just this totally trippy thing, and he is naked. He's totally naked, filmed from behind, and it intercuts with their fantasy of Anta and Mory riding the car as a parade, but then they cut, and you see that nobody else is on the side of the road at all. Anyway, Floyd, you have something to say.
Yeah, so talking about the wrestling, the robbery of the wrestling, they grabbed the wrong thing. Instead of grabbing a trunk full of money, they grabbed a trunk full of fetishes, right?
Okay.
These magical objects that the wrestlers use to make themselves powerful. Right, these ritual objects. When they discover that failure, they go and they meet this old friend of Mory's, this guy who's very well known, who happens to be gay. And so Mory goes up into his apartment with him, and while the guy thinks he's gonna get Mory to have his way with him, Mory steals all his clothes, takes his car keys, and they drive off. Right. That's what happens there, and that's when this other fantasy. But see, this is one of the things that was controversial about the film, right? The inclusion of a gay character that didn't happen very much, especially in the 1960s in African film, and that admission raised a bit of controversy. The film wasn't shown in Senegal, I think, until 10 years later. It went to Cannes, but they would never show it publicly. The film industry was highly regulated back then. As to what a matter of fact, I don't think they even showed Ousmane Sembène's films, because his films challenged a lot of the norms. By questioning Islam. He made a film called Cheto, which questioned Islam. Which question Christianity and Islam. So these filmmakers are making films that they can't show in their own countries, and that was very, very, very common. And let's not forget Tarzan.
Oh yeah,
Tarzan turns up in the film. Right, the white character, right? This white guy turns up in a tree
I didn't connect that with Tarzan at all. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just kind of this wild white person, but yeah, Tarzan, that's hilarious.
He just turns
Yeah.
up first. He's in a tree,
Yeah.
and then he's casually just walking around the neighborhood. Right? It was. I mean, that's some of the wildest stuff I've ever seen. You know, and Jabril himself. I mean, knowing him, meeting him and knowing him, he's this intense, really intense guy that's given to these moments of total absurdity, right? He didn't make films for almost 20 years, and then when he begins to make films again, he just burst, he just burst with films. He had made one other film before Touki Bouki. That was his that was a test. It was called Baru Boy, and that was his test. That was his first exercise. That's when he got his language together. It's a very simple film, one camera, as I think all of this was. Everything shot in one camera. But Touki Bouki was something. It rose to a level that nobody expected. And that ending. If we can get to the ending about when they finally get the money and they're ready to get the and they're ready to leave, and Anta gets on the boat, and Mory decides not to go. That was the biggest shock for me. You know what I mean? Here's his chance to go to Paris, and Anta ends up going by herself. That's a spoiler. I'm sorry. It's a spoiler,
and the French people on the ship are total pigs, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this film satirizes everybody.
Yeah.
Like there's obviously the French people, and they're really snooty and saying all these terrible things about the Senegalese, and they're super pretentious, like these pseudo intellectual people who are, reveling in their wealth. And it's definitely like reminded me of something from Godard, like the way they're talking. But there's also at the beginning of the film, there are those student revolutionaries who are associated with Anta, who are also like, they attack Mory, and then and they're sort of satirizing that side of too, the sort of revolutionary side as well. So it's real. He's really there's just so much going on in the film. Like there's just so much to soak in. Every minute of this film has, and there's so much symbolism too. Like they actually have a rope and they tie him up, and they're taking him around the town, and he almost looks dead for a while. I thought, did they kill him? At first. But there's also that rope reappears over and over again. Like Mory is trying to rope his motorcycle in a scene.
Yeah,
like
he
with
plays
the cattle.
Cowboy, right?
He plays cowboy, and then later at the pool, there's another one of the cronies of Charlie, the homosexual character. He's got a rope and he's throwing it too. So there's all this symbolism of that, like, and maybe that relates to him being pulled back and not being able to break free or staying.
Yeah, being tied to it.
Yeah. I mean, it begins, and this is the reason Felina isn't on the show, is it begins with a really graphic slaughter of a steer in a slaughterhouse. And then it cuts to a child who almost represents Mory as a child riding a zebu steer.
That is Mory.
That is Mory. Okay.
It's at the end as well.
Yeah.
The end ends with that shot. So you get the sense of that's him back to he's in that same space that he started out with. Like
I mean, even when he's on the gangplank to get on the ship, it cuts to that steer walking on the plank to get into the slaughterhouse. And
don't forget, and then Tarzan turns up again.
Tarzan, yeah, it is. It does whip you around from these satiric images and these trippy as fuck images to this harsh reality. But yeah, the Young Communist League or whatever, they rope him. I mean, when it cuts to him on the motorcycle, I feel almost like, and I'm looking at this as somebody who watches too many Westerns, both old TV Westerns. I'm like, is he a maverick? The Maverick Bull, the Maverick Steer. because that's what he seems to be. But then he also can't break away from the herd either. He,
Yeah, I always think that the reality of what he's going into, that he was maybe unprepared for, was the reality of these conversations on the boat. Anta Anta is actually more prepared for it. Anta has always had a plan. When we first see her, she's studying. She's a diligent student. Mory is kind of wildcat. He's a maverick. He is. He's a wild card. So Anta, by virtue of her education, is ready to deal with it. Anta had no idea what he might have to deal with.
Or Mory, yeah,
Mory. I mean,
yeah.
I'm sorry, Mory. I don't. Yeah.
Morim Nyong, am I getting that? Or Morim Nyong is playing Anta, but what's the actor who plays Mory? Just because we haven't mentioned them at all specifically.
Same surname, but I don't think they're related.
Yeah.
No, they're not.
Magay
and Miriam Yang.
Okay.
Yeah, Dave got her name wrong. It's Miriam. I know her too. I met her in New York when she came. Yeah.
Yeah, she's very tomboyish. I mean, she's also naked in it too, here and there. And there's some nudity here. There's some animal slaughter. I mean, Felina, when we showed The Thing from Another World, the 51 film, she got mad at James Arness tossing around the German Shepherds. So I had seen this movie before on TCM for the international films that they show on Sunday nights, and Floyd had talked about it, and I'm like, oh, Touki Bouki's about to start, I'll watch it. But I remembered how trippy and how hallucinatory it was, but I did not remember the extent of the animal slaughter scenes, because there's also a scene where woman, she stabs a goat in the neck and then she just skins it, and these are all animals that are definitely being eaten, everybody.
And these are everyday, and this is everyday life in Africa and in every country where people live on the land, essentially. They don't have stores. They don't have big grocery stores. So so like meat.
And somebody here is still doing this work too. We just
I mean, out here we got you can buy live chickens on the north side of Chicago.
There's a place right in Oakland that I pass by on 880 every time I go north.
Matter of fact, certain neighborhoods you go through, and there'll be dead chickens laid at somebody's door because somebody's doing a little santeria. I mean, it's alive. I mean.
All goes back to West Africa, Floyd. All goes back
to West Africa, Puerto Rico, Haiti, Cuba.
I am glad you brought up the Congo or Zaire, because I feel so ignorant watching this movie, because my only other frame of reference for Africa at this time is When We Were Kings and the Rumble in the Jungle with Ali and George Foreman. And there's all this stuff about the fetishir and that, and the curse put on George Foreman, supposedly. But talking to you, I'm like, well, I mean, my education on African history is all through colonialism. I never took a course on African history specifically, so I'm profoundly ignorant about it. But I feel a little better because, I mean, it is West Africa at the same time, although I believe Congo is the size of the United States, which is how big a continent Africa is compared to North and South America. And so we just see, when you look at the map and the maps distort our view, you see the Congo, which this takes place in Senegal, which is north, but the Congo, you just think of it as, this little country, but it's this huge country. It's as big as this country. I'm the only one doing Weed Rex today. All the stoners are too stoned to be on the podcast, so it's just me. You could go two ways with this. Like Darren says, you feel stoned enough anyway, but the movie also doesn't really make sense on your first viewing, and I think it only will make more sense with more powerful weed. So I'm going to recommend Fuzzy's Jet Fuel Gelato pre-rolls, and they have live resin. So go light on this if you're a lightweight, because according to this package here, it's got 43% THC. But it's going to make you feel relaxed and happy, and that can get you through some of the animal slaughter. Also make you feel hungry, maybe not the right thing. But yeah, I've been getting these pre-rolls from Fuzzies because, hey, folks, they've been on sale at my local dispensary, and doing this podcast, you have to try a lot of different kinds of weed. You do. So pre-rolls are the way I often roll, so to speak. So Jet Fuel Gelato from Fuzzies. It's a hybrid, but you will trip massively, and I think maybe this movie makes a little more sense the higher you are, instead of going the opposite way and trying to do a low THC, go high THC. And even if you don't understand it, it's amazing to look at, the imagery, the colors, and it is, like Darren said, it is like somebody telling you their dream, because stuff doesn't always line up. But don't try to make it line up. Hey, millennials, don't be obsessed with making it make sense. It doesn't always have to make sense, but it's still a very profound movie at the same time. But just go into that dream space with it.
Just a correction here. The Republic of Congo is not larger than the U. It's not larger than the U.S. It isn't. It's the area of the United States is about four times as large, right? But when you talk about Africa, the entire continent of Africa is larger than the U.S.
Well, of course it is. I mean, it's larger than North America.
Way larger, yeah. So maybe what you were smoking might have affected your perception.
Hey, thanks for the correction there. That thought wormed its way into my head, but Congo does have over 100 million people in it. Am I
right? It's got 108 million people. I mean, it is huge. I mean, when you travel across these places, and I have, they go on forever and ever and ever. And I've gone by land across a lot of these places, right? And because I didn't have no money, and that's how I had to do it.
Did you run into Werner Herzog when you were traveling?
Oh no, I didn't. I didn't run into Werner Herzog, but I did run into some evil Tennessee missionaries.
Oh, that's maybe Werner. I mean, he writes a lot in his book here. Every Man for Himself and God Against All. He writes about his travels in Africa and then almost dying there, but being rescued by German engineers, found him and rescued him.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Going way off topic here, but yes, Werner was also supposedly, and he will tell a tall tale, but he was a rodeo clown in Mexico. Way off topic here. I was all wrong about the size of Congo, or Zaire, as it is called, and When We Were Kings.
But it's okay. This is old movies for young stoners. So, you know.
But what it tells me is we all need to work on our African geography. Maybe not you, Floyd. You've been there, but I do look at the map of Africa, and I'm like,
Americans. The joke is Americans are deficient in two things: irony and geography.
Touki Bouki is currently streaming on Criterion Channel, and watch it while you can on HBOMax before David Ellison removes it for being too DEI.
Here it is, the mighty legend that comes to life on the screen. Allah! Akbar! Viking! Here they come. Now! The adventurers who conquered the world. The lusty Viking warriors who worshipped flesh and devils as they plundered an age. Here they are. Fire! The long ships and the tall men, searching, slaughtering for the fabled fabulous golden bell, the mother of voices. No prize was more treasured, more blood-stained than the bell of Byzantium that held half the gold in all the world in one piece.
For the last time, Newsman. Where is the bell?
I don't know.
Perhaps 100 lashes.
The long ships. Seldom has the screen seen such an avalanche of excitement.
Sidney Poitier made his film debut as a young black doctor working in a recently integrated hospital. co-starring with Richard Widmark as a virulent racist in No Way Out, a 1950 noir where racial tensions boil over into violence that is still shocking today. After having to shout the N-word repeatedly at 22-year-old Poitier, Widmark swore off playing the snickering psychopaths that had made him a star since his film debut in the 1947 noir Kiss of Death. Poitier and Widmark later co-starred in the equally tense Cold War doomsday drama The Bedford Incident, but in our next film, they got to have a little fun for a change, at least if the shoot in Yugoslavia wasn't so unpleasant. Widmark chews the scenery as Viking conman, and Poitier gets to strut around in lavish costumes as a Moorish king. Both men are after the mother of all voices, a bell made of half the gold in all the world. Lots of Norseman hijinks ensue that probably don't play so well today, but what the hell. Also starring Rosanna Schiaffino as the Moorish queen, and Russ Tamblyn from War of the Gargantuas is wearing Viking shorty shorts as Widmark's wingman. Directed by Jack Cardiff, the man who shot The Red Shoes and Black Narcissus. Yes, the cinematographer, the master of Technicolor, Jack Cardiff, shot this movie. Filmed in Technorama from Columbia Pictures in 1964. This is The Long Ships. Okay.
And what about the writer?
What about, there's a couple different writers, but the writer was the same woman who wrote Jason and the Argonauts, right? It is.
And the TV guy, what's his name? Bruce Gelman?
Well, there is a story on that, is that Beverly Cross, who had just written Jason, she wrote the original script, but Widmark was kind of being a movie star dick about things and had rewrites done. So there's three Berkeley Mather, Beverly Cross, and Franz G. Bengston are the ones credited with this film.
They don't even. Oh, okay, all right. I have to go back and check that because I thought Bruce Gilman had a role in that screenplay.
I'm on Team Beverly Cross because she wrote the hell out of Jason and the Argonauts, Floyd.
Okay. Oh, that's your favorite. Okay.
Yeah. We just did that movie because we did an Odyssey episode last time, so we just did Jason.
You want to know one of the strangest things about Poitier's character? He's a celibate. He's a celibate king with a harem.
When we did Pressure Point, with Ngayo Belam a year ago or more. I read Sydney biographies, and it's always about managing Sydney's sex appeal, or making, like, even in, he barely gets to kiss his fiance only in the rearview mirror do we see him kiss his fiance in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. There's a lot of effort in these films, and some of them are classic films, but there's a lot of effort into keeping Sydney sexless in these movies, even when he has a harem.
Yes, and in order to not alienate the Southern audience.
Yeah. He's got the finest queen in the world. And it's an interracial because she's Italian. So yeah, that Southern audience can't think that Sydney is stooping, what's her name? I just said it. Rosanna here. Can't have that. Can't have it.
But like I was saying earlier, and this is at a time when he had won every award under the sun. He was highly visible, extremely talented. And his image the attempt to control his image was crazy. This fear of like interracial relationship. It got me that they even attempted to even portray anything. But there's a reason for that, because it's part of the contradiction of, like, race and sex in America. Nobody likes to talk about that.
Yeah. So, Darren, had you seen The Long Ships before?
No, this is my first viewing of Long Ships.
Oh, as well. So it's new to you.
All new to me, yes. And I'll talk more about it as we go on. I'm not sure how to start, but yeah, it was visually, it was a feast. I think this movie, you can tell that a cinematographer directed this film, right?
Mhm.
And the technorama is in full force. I wish I could see it on the big screen. It's just an amazing. I mean, some of the visual compositions of the higher scale, the bigger scale scenes are just incredible in this film.
Yeah, one of the things that's really important about the film is that it gives us an image of history that we don't get in mainstream history. This black king with an empire in Africa, right? This idea of the Moors, of there being any sort of comparative medieval civilization in Africa is something that wasn't promoted in mainstream education even. So when we see him, the problem for me was when they showed that picture of him on Ebony magazine when the movie was coming out, he looked like a 42nd Street pimp.
Well, yeah, his hair. Is
Yeah.
something else.
The hair, the clothes.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you can see guys on 42nd Street or downtown Chicago dressed like that on a daily basis, right? So, but it was a good attempt, you know. But the acting, man, was so cheesy. Oh my God. The acting was so cheesy. I mean, I got it. You know, you get that sort of Scarlet, help me, Bob. The Crimson Pirates. You get that.
Yeah. Oh,
kind of
yeah.
Crimson
You're
Pirates.
right. Widmark's definitely doing the Burt Lancaster. He's playing the Viking as a kind of con man, a teller of tall tales. I mean, he's one of my favorite actors, but this is him at his hammiest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he is hamming it up in that. I mean, they did the Bedford incident a year after this, which is this it's basically like, what if we put Dr. Strangelove on a ship in the North Sea or, you know, the Baltic or something, and there's a nuclear standoff between an American destroyer and a Soviet nuclear sub. And both of their acting, Poitier and Widmark, I mean, they're really bringing it in that movie, where in this they are having a bit more fun. The movie is what it is. These Vikings show up in North Africa, and they're after this golden bell that Widmark has heard of. And but Poitier also wants the bell, so there's a rivalry between the two. And there's also the Vikings get loose in the harem, so there's some very slapstick comedy with that. That might not play so well today, but yeah, it goes from almost being serious to having this kind of slapstick stuff in it. It's very it might be
the beginning of the film. Yeah, I
Yes.
just have to talk about the beginning of the film because
yes,
it's
please.
my favorite thing in the world. It begins with this almost quasi. Obviously, there's the credit sequence, which has this border, and it's showing the ship being rollicked around, and it seems like maybe a prequel to where Richard Widmark at the beginning is on the Barbary coast in Sidney Poitier's kingdom, right? And he's sort of stranded, and so you get this sense. But even before that, there's this sort of Lord of the Rings-like intro to the film where you get this half animated sequence that has these backdrops with these shadows. Mm-hmm. And it tells the story of the bell and the building of the bell by showing a series of mosaics. This is an incredible sequence. I was just blown away by this. My wife watched it with me and we were just like, wow. You know, I thought this was an incredible way to open the film. And it actually makes the film seem more serious than it actually ends up being, right? Because there's a mixture of comedy and action, and it's all in good fun. But the beginning is just beautiful. There's really nothing that looks like this beginning of this film, with these shadows walking across these backdrops with the mosaic, and the way that the kind of shadowy figures interact with the still life imagery is just, it would have been incredible to see this on a big screen.
I mean, this is where you see that this is the guy who shot the Red Shoes, right. And Black Narcissus and all these Powell and Pressburger movies. I mean, he's the guy who makes those movies look, I mean, not to take anything away from Michael Powell, but he's the guy who makes those movies look as amazing as they do. And here he's directed. He also was the cinematographer for The Vikings with Kirk Douglas and Tony Curtis. So he got the job because he's experienced at shooting this kind of thing. And also African Queen. So even though this film was shot in Yugoslavia, much to Sidney Poitier's regret, he had experience shooting in Africa with John Huston as well. So I mean, maybe his directing career, I mean, I think his last film he directed is called The Mutations, and it's this weird horror film with Donald Pleasance where he's experimenting with plants and people, making hybrid plant people, but then he runs afoul of some circus freaks. There's like circus freak drama as well, so it's like a combination between freaks and I don't know a movie where people are being made into plant people, but freaks and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I don't know. But that was the end of Jack Cardiff's directing career. He also later in the 80s he was the go-to guy to shoot sequels to Muscle Man movies. So he shot Conan the Destroyer and he shot Rambo 2. So He was very good at getting, like, if you wanted Schwarzenegger or Stallone to look extra glistening, this was your guy.
Mm-hmm. Richard Widmark turned down the lead role four times. He rejected that part, and he said before taking it on, there was one condition: that Sidney Poitier played a Moorish ruler.
Yeah, they have. I mean, they did 3 movies together, and he was Widmark. I mean, like I said in my intro, Widmark. He in No Way Out, he says the N-word several times in Sidney's face.
You know who they wanted to play that role?
No,
Ernest Borgnine.
Well, he did play the Viking King in the Vikings.
Yeah,
I think he would have been a better Croc, who's Richard Widmark's father. I think Borgnine would have been a better Croc, although they got an incredible actor to play that role. I was watching with my wife, and she's like, he is the archetype of the laughing, spitting man, this guy. You know, those heads they have, this laughing and spitting. The Croc,
Oscar
Homolka, who's just like this, the drunkenness, the drunkest of all drunk Vikings that ever lived. In a very over-the-top performance.
Now, Darren, how much of an influence do you think The Long Ships has on George Lucas in Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh my God. Interesting question. Yeah.
There used to be a tweet, and I tried to find it, but good luck searching X for things that are maybe 15 years old now. But there was a tweet that said, do you think George Lucas watched this movie or something like that? And it had pictures from The Long Ships juxtaposed against pictures from Empire Strikes Back. And I mean, Leia in the Jabba slave girl, or Leia as the enslaved woman. It was her in that outfit with Jabba side by side with Rosanna Schiaffino wearing almost the same exact outfit in the tall ships. And then also Lando Calrissian up next to Sydney in the hair and some of the outfits that they both wear in these movies. So yeah, George Lucas definitely, at least, or his costume designer, somebody definitely was looking at the Long Ships.
Interestingly enough, the only award that this is mentioned for this film is actually Best Costume Design. It was nominated for a BAFTA. I gather this was pretty popular in the UK, this movie. It seemed to do better there than it did here. But that's interesting because the costumes, I mean, Sidney Poitier's costumes alone are just amazing. Like his armor he wears. And although I will say there is a thing that the costume designer has with Vikings with no pants, because there are several Vikings in this film who have no pants. Like Richard Widmark at the beginning is wearing no pants, and then there are a couple other Vikings, and I don't remember if they're named. One with the gray hair and another one who are very prominently featured, and they're literally wearing like Speedos under his shirt. So it's he kind of had a leg fetish, I think, But yeah, the costumes are amazing. It's one of the things that contributes to the spectacle of this film, for sure.
What is it? Anthony Mendelsohn, who was nominated for a BAFTA for this. He also did Crawl, Darren.
Wow.
The 1983
Amazing.
Sci-fi fantasy movie Dragon Slayer.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Yeah, The Keep. Michael Mann's weird Nazis find an ancient evil in a castle. The Keep. Saturn 3. I mean, just a lot of crap that Darren and my generation watched on HBO in the 80s when our parents were asleep or not paying attention. Like, this guy did the costumes for these movies. I was looking to make sure he didn't do the costumes for Star Wars films, but he didn't. He did costumes for movies that were kind of ripping off Star Wars. So good for him.
And don't forget, Jack Cardiff wanted Ursula Andress to play the lead role.
Well, who didn't?
Who would have looked great in the costume.
Yeah. I think Rosanna does pretty well here. I mean,
but Ursula was more smoky. She had that more smoky feeling. That she was that Italian actress was kind of like too, like Sophia Loren wannabe kind of, just too. I don't know, too bright. Ursula Andress always had this like dark thing going on with her.
Even when she's in an Elvis movie.
Well, that's later,
Yeah.
After her European period, then they put them in the Hollywood movies and destroys everything they did before, and we defined them by the Elvis movie that they were in.
Well, I mean, she was also in Dr. No, the first James Bond movie, so that's
of course. That's where my 10-year-old ass saw it.
And you went back and saw the movie over and over again.
I even snuck the Playboy issue with her in it, hell yeah. So her and Sophia Loren and Dorothy Dandridge,
Oh yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't put Dorothy Dandridge in this, That was she should have been in this film.
Then Sidney could have had sex with somebody.
Well, no, he has to be desexualized. Period. In these Hollywood movies, they're not allowed. I mean, it's like even if you were black and had a wife, it was hard for you to give her a kiss. It was just like desexualize the image.
They kind of failed at that though, because there's definitely some shirtless action, right? He's wearing those gems across his chest, and he's definitely looking, it doesn't seem desexualized to me in that sense.
Yes.
It definitely seems like they tried to put him out there.
That's where the hypocrisy comes in, because they can't do it. They really can't do it. He was in another film. I'm trying to remember which it was. And the looks that they gave one another, the look that Sidney and the white actress gave one another, man, was like, was setting the theater on fire. Because it's like acting, and in acting, you know how to project that kind of energy, and that energy was really strong. And Sidney was never that, he was never a big, he was never. Now somebody like Harry Belafonte, and that's what was the name of that film? The one about the last man and last woman on Earth.
Oh, there's 3 of them. Yeah.
One with the one made by Harry Belafonte's company. The World of Flesh and the Devil. The World of Flesh and the Devil.
It's even got devil and
what
flesh
a title.
in it. Yeah.
The World of Flesh and the Devil. It's the last black man and the last white woman until the last white man finally turns up.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I should say this here, but Harry Belafonte was my mom's white racism hall pass. I mean, I would hear, because I'm a little kid. I don't even really know who Harry Belafonte is necessarily. Yeah. And her and her friends are getting drunk and they're like, well, he's a black man, but I would hit that, basically.
Dayo, baby.
White racism was not powerful enough.
All the way back to the slave quarters. Dayo.
Just like, so.
That's right. That's where that song lyric comes. Daylight coming, me want to go home.
What is it? But yeah, Belafonte turns down a lot of these roles that Sidney, and he recommends Sidney, and I don't like to cast Sidney in this in this light necessarily, but Belafonte just refused to meet white racism or the studios halfway. He was going to do what he wanted.
Okay. Well, I hate to drop names, but I spent the afternoon with Harry Belafonte at the Berlin Film Festival, and we got early for a party that they were having for him. So we got there at 3:00. The party started at 7. So we hung around talking, and he told me everything, man. He told me, he said he let Sidney take those roles because he wouldn't take them. But like they would tell him, well, we want you to play an African. And Harry would say, well, you want me to be from Zimbabwe, from South Africa, from Nigeria, Tanzania? What kind of African am I? It doesn't matter. It's just an African. He says, no, you got to tell me what. I want to know how to prepare for the role. No, you just play an ordinary African. Africa is a continent. It's not a country. And these are the arguments he would have with the producers. And when he got tired of it, he would just say, hey, you know what? Call Sidney. And Sidney, I don't want to say Sidney did what he was told, but Harry had a career as a singer. So he didn't have to do whatever they wanted him to do. He could turn down a role and go out and make probably 3 times as much money as they would pay him working in a film. He did folk music, he did calypso, he toured internationally. So he had the freedom to turn down the roles he didn't like.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, in 1959, and he's a co-producer of these movies, I believe. He did Odds Against Tomorrow.
Right.
With
wonderful movie. Movie.
And The World of Flesh and the Devil. And these are very risky, very, very, very daring films.
Daring and technically superior films too. I mean, what he meant, how, it's just crazy. But Sidney, like the possibilities of something like The Longships, characters like Portier's character were on the street because we had Black history in the newspapers. We had Black history cartoons. A guy by the name of J.A. Rogers had done a book called The World's Great Men of Color back in the 1920s, 1930s, right? And somebody started doing cartoons of all these characters in the Black newspapers and syndicated these cartoons. So we were aware of all of these great African empires and things, it's interesting because I'm working on this film about Black photographers. And one of the first things that showed up was in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and the beginning of the 60s, Black people weren't even covered in the white press, did not have an existence except as social problems and criminals. So there's this knowledge, there's this thing that Black people saw in that film that kind of acknowledged what we were getting in the street already, right? We were getting actual real history that sometimes you only got to when you got to the graduate level. I mean, it was interesting when you kind of look at history. Having worked outside of the country and been in foreign universities and foreign libraries and things, half the stuff that I've seen there when I go to do research on Africa, I had never seen in this country before. Except maybe if I had gone to Harvard or maybe gone to the University of Chicago or someplace, or the Africana Library at Northwestern University. So the film was daring in that,
The Longships, yeah. Because the more, and not using Poirier instead of somebody in brownface.
Yeah.
I mean, I just saw El Cid with Charlton Heston, and who's the actor? Herbert Lom is in brownface as the Moor in that, and of course he's the scariest guy ever. And I'm like, what? How would you cast Herbert Lom in this role when like William Marshall is alive?
And don't forget, Anthony Quinn played Muhammad.
He did, yeah.
Don't forget that. It's oh man. And
don't begrudge a Mexican brother from the East Side, Floyd.
Hey, it's okay. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. It's better than having Charlton Heston play him.
Oh, his we're way off track here, but Anthony Quinn's whole career is he convinced John Ford and Cecil B. DeMille that he was Apache, and he's just a Mexican guy from LA. And so his whole, then he's Zorba, and Telly Savalas must have wanted to assassinate him because he's always playing Greeks, and he's a Mexican guy. Telly Savalas had to have it in for Anthony Quinn, but Anthony was a better actor, Telly. I'm sorry, Telly. Anthony was better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Darren, on the Longships?
Just a few things we haven't talked about. Like, first of all, I don't know how we've avoided talking about the Mayor of Steel, which is this incredible contraption that Sidney Poitier dreams of. I guess there's not as much of the Mayor of Steel as they built this giant contraption torture device that's
it's like a razor you ride down and it's going to slice you in half.
Into a bed of nails, and we Richard Widmark is threatened with that and manages to talk his way out of that. So that's a pretty incredible set piece. I mean, the whole set design of that, the Moorish Barbary kingdom is incredible. They do a really good job. And then the other thing I want to mention is Russ Tamblyn. Like Bob, obviously, and Floyd, you probably know about Russ Tamblyn and all the mini films he's done. I know him basically from The Haunting and Twin Peaks. That's about it. I can't believe how he wasn't the biggest action star of the 60s, because he does these incredible moves. It turns out he is a gymnast, and there's some incredible stuff he does. He actually is, you can tell it's him doing it. There's one scene in the Viking village where he basically does this kind of pull-up flip over this bar that's placed above a door, and it's just amazing. And there's tons of scenes of him, flipping backwards, pushing off his hands, doing these incredible moves, and he's just climbing up the flagpole, the mast, and stuff like that. It's just incredible. He did an amazing job in this movie, just from an action point of view. Yeah, I mean, the action scenes in this are solid too. I think the fight scenes are great. Although I will say this is also a picture that isn't necessarily kind to animals. There's definitely a lot of horse stripping and stuff like that happened in this film as well. So
well, Russ Tamblyn, he was known for this. This is like in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, in the big dance scenes, he's doing all these handstands and backflips and things. And his star defining performance is in Tom Thumb, and so he's this miniaturized person, and that's what he does a lot. He's jumping all around in George Powell's Tom Thumb from 1958. But
I'll have to watch that.
Burt Lancaster was able to take that kind of circus acrobatics and trapeze work and make an action career out of it, where I guess Russ Tamblyn, he's in musicals. So, so he's bringing that to West Side Story. He's bringing it to Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, which were these tremendously huge films at the time. But then by the late 60s, he's in Tokyo to Get Work, and he's in War of the Gargantuas. And
I know him from that too. Yeah.
Let me get into the Weed Rex. If Corey was here, he would say this movie isn't stony, except for maybe the intro scenes, which I do think influence the Lord of the Rings movies, and both, not just the live action Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies of 20 years ago, or 25 years. God, we're getting old, aren't we? 25 years ago, but also the Ralph Bashki Lord of the Rings movies. Definitely. Yeah, that's that beginning sequence. But Corey would say this movie isn't stony. And I'm going to agree with him, because I see this movie and how I first experienced this movie. This is a hangover movie. You've been out drinking at the Paradise Lounge, going to rock shows all night, getting plowed, somehow staggering back to your apartment. You turn on Action 36 back in the day, and this movie with we didn't even know what it was called. Me and my friends, we talk about this movie. We just didn't remember what it was called. Maybe came in a half hour, 45 minutes into it, hungover as fuck, watching this, going, oh, it's that movie with the Vikings and the bell. The Vikings are after this bell, so that's like, this is a hangover movie. So I don't recommend going out and drinking a half a pint of Jack Daniels and then watching this movie the next day. But that's how I experienced it. But I'm going to say, if you're going to, you can watch any movie and get stoned, people. It doesn't have to always be a hallucinatory masterpiece. This movie would be very enjoyable stoned, but I'm going to go with a more kind of old school strain for this hybrid. I'm going to go with Gary Payton for this one. Not super, super high in THC, but, it'll get you there. A little bit of CBG in it, but not a whole lot. But Gary Payton, it's according to Leafly, a highly coveted marijuana strain bred by Powers Up Genetics and named after the NBA Hall of Famer Gary Payton. Combining the Y and the snowman breeds a potent, flavorful, colorful strain. And if you want to go even more old school for this, which you might. I would say Jack Herrera. Jack Herrera would be a totally good strain for The Long Ships. The Long Ships is streaming for free with ads on Tubi. So the other suggestion, go drink a half a pint or a pint of Jack Daniels the night before, wake up and put on The Long Ships while you have a hair of the dog, a little bit of beer. Floyd, thank you once again for being a rare 3-time guest on Old Movies for Young Stoners. Tell us where people can find you and what you've got coming up.
Let's see. You can find me at FLOYDWEBB.com, Blackness Network. I'm planning a Mac Vickers Memorial Festival of Kung Fu Cinema.
Oh,
later in the year. Probably
where is that going to be?
Probably in Chicago Filmmakers, but I'm thinking about making it hybrid. Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to show all old Kung Fu films, only the most significant ones, but I'm going to get a couple of Kung Fu films that were made in Chicago and were never screened here. There's a catalog of stuff out here that's never been seen because the martial arts community is like really, really niche. And if it's not like a big mainstream film, those films get put into like special screenings in theaters. Like they'll have Dan Inosanto's daughter has been in films that she starred in. I don't even know if her films are streaming.
Yeah, Danny Inosanto, the main protege of Bruce Lee. So just for. Mm-hmm. Yeah. People to know. So yeah.
And so I'm finishing the documentary on photography, releasing legally-drugged.com. You can see a trailer for the film there, and it'll be released on demand, or rather pay per view on blackness.tv, BLACKNUSS, like the Roland Kirk song. And we're in pre-production on the Yasuke, the African samurai film in Tokyo.
Oh, that's you've been working on that, and we've all been looking forward to that.
Yeah, and that's going to be directed by that's with a South African company, Pablo Media. It's being directed by Mandla Dube, who's done a number of films on Netflix. And matter of fact, he's working on an African superhero film. He just finished last week an African superhero film in Rwanda that I don't have any details on. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff happening. There's more stuff happening outside of the United States than it is in the United States regarding this kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, it's why would you want to do it here?
Hey, that was my whole thing. I didn't want to do any, I was like, this has to be a Japanese African co-production. And that's what I pushed for like 8 years.
Well, I remember that somebody else was going to make a movie on Yasuke because we've talked about you're making this documentary and trying to get it off the ground. And then they were going to make a live action film. But of course, it became a escaped slave narrative, which just isn't true. Yeah. I'm sorry. Like not all people and black people on the continent of Africa were enslaved at any point. So he was a pirate or
he was an elite warrior. He was an elite warrior from a mystic order, of which there was about 30 of those mystic orders throughout Africa and all the empires, who went to India and worked as a mercenary after the fall of the empire he was associated with in Southeast Africa, and he worked with an African warlord in India by the name of Malik Ambar, and that's where he got his battlefield credentials, and ended up working as a mercenary for a Jesuit official who was on the way to Tokyo to try to take over the trade route and institute slavery in Japan.
Great.
This is all true.
But and also you have your blog, Different Lens, on Substack, and I mean Floyd's blog is a little serious, people. So he's blogging about the.
You might want to smoke a joint. You might want to smoke 2 joints.
Smoke 2 joints after reading it.
It's too real.
Darren, thank you so much for your Old Movies for Young Stoners debut. What do you have going on? What's going on in Darren Land?
Well, there's my podcast, so you can find that on any of the platforms. So I have a podcast with another person. It's called Cultural Futures Exchange. It's basically music, movies, pop culture, books. It's just fun. We're on a bit of a hiatus now, but you can check us out on any platform. Just search for that, or Instagram. We're at Cultural Futures. So yeah,
he does. Darren, your partner's name? Sorry, it escapes me.
It's Jeff. Yeah,
Jeff. Darren and Jeff. They do these really deep dives on things. I mean, I listened to the $6 Million Man one, but also music. I was disappointed. I'm all listening to you just did one of your last episodes was on Toto, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be, Toe the Line, Toto, Africa, the band, but it was about the toilet manufacturer. So,
yeah,
there's a little bit of a like, what the, I still listened to it, and it was great, but it wasn't what I was expecting. So, and you can find their 2-part deep dive into the Phantasm film series, all 5 films, plus the early Don Coscarelli films that fed into Phantasm. And a fascinating listen, good for a road trip. That's how I listen to it. And, pour one out for Reggie Bannister, the late Reggie Bannister. That guy blazed a lot of ganja while he was driving around that ice cream truck and fighting zombies. God bless him. So.
Okay. Hey, I've got it right here. The Exchange on Podbean. Okay.
Yeah, check it out.
So that wraps up our African Visions episode. Also a little bit of Odyssey exploitation here because we can't get away from quests and people trying to get somewhere. I guess that might be all movies, all cinema. Somebody's always trying to get somewhere, especially Matt Damon. Coyote vs. Acme, the cartoon that David Zaslav could not keep down, is hitting theaters on August 28th. So me and Greg are trying to do a mini episode where we talk about Looney Tunes for 45 minutes. Cross your fingers that can happen. Greg's got a lot going on in his life. He misses the podcast, but we're going to try to get him on for a little bit because I could just hit play and Greg could talk about cartoons for a very long time. I don't have to do a lot of research or work on that episode, so I'm looking forward to that. So we want to get that coinciding, maybe even just a week from the time you're listening to this, to coincide with the release of Coyote vs. Acme. And then Zabriskie Point is on Criterion. So we're going to try to get that going for September. We don't want to miss Zabriskie Point because it is one of these arty stoner movies. That's the zone we live in on this podcast. But whatever we do, you could pack that in a bowl and toke it on Old Movies for Young Stoners.